Yeah, I'm as ready as I'm gonna be. Um, so originally I proposed something different, and they were like, "Yeah, AI is kind of controversial. Yeah, let's have this discussion." And I was like, "Sure, we can do this." So, yeah, that's me. And yeah, let's talk about what about use or not of AI in computer science education, if we should, if we shouldn't. And so in terms of that, you know, like AI can be used, abused, misused in education in general. Um, and there's some specific CS ways that AI use or not may be more or less relevant. Um, but and I'll really quickly go through these, and then I want most of this time to just be you all talking and hearing your views and us having this as a discussion. Um, and so in general, and I'm sure you talk to a whole bunch of people, they'll find a whole bunch of different ways um, AI gets used in education, and there's probably more every time you go to look. But in general, I've found a lot of them can be put in these sorts of buckets of content generation, content evaluation, or summarization, um, and uh, and sort of support the more conversational aspect side of things. And whether this is the instructor doing it or whether this is the student doing it, um, either way, it kind of all typically falls in one of these buckets from what I have seen. Um, but it's a rapidly changing field, and there's probably some new bucket that's come about that I just haven't come across yet. Um, and and so for each of these, we could discuss the extent to which this short circuits actually learning, or to what extent does this actually help with learning, or stuff like that. But when it comes to AI in computer science education in particular, it winds up with this sort of odd little tweak of, when we hear about tools like GitHub Copilot boosting programmer productivity by 55%, it winds up being this sort of thing like, oh my goodness, of course everywhere is going to use this. So therefore, maybe our students should be learning this. But on the other hand, it's like there's lots of nuance. In many ways, it kind of reminds me of debates about whether or not calculators should be used, but I think it's at a very different sort of level than just, oh, should we use a calculator or not? Um, because to me, a lot of this is about changing the nature of how we relate to the technology and how we relate to the content. And so, in my mind, some of this discussion is what should the relationship be? Um, but that's just a few leading introductory thoughts. Um, I really want the focus on this to be hearing your thoughts. So I was thinking, why don't we go around, introduce ourselves, and say just a little bit about what our thoughts and views are, and then when we're done, we'll open it up to uh, a free for all that will be moderated by the moderator. Um, thank you, moderator. So yeah, looking at the list here, as it shows up in my list of participants, next one on the list is Dan. So
Hello,
take it away.
everybody. Dan McCreary. I'm working for an AI company out in the Bay Area, and our technology helps chatbots create more precise responses using enterprise knowledge graphs and putting front ends to knowledge graphs. I have my big learning is I just am finishing up a session at the University of Minnesota, working with some professors there in a senior project. And my assignment for 6 people in a senior project was to have them each generate sample microsims. Val is the creator of the concept of microsims here, so hats off to you, Val. And what I found was that most of these people were not computer science students, but they struggled with the idea of decomposition. They couldn't write a prompt that says, break this problem up into smaller pieces. And once I taught them how to do that, man, they just took off. So I think the summary that what I'm finding is that, first of all, AI is not gone away. It's only getting better. It's only getting more powerful. And teachers, as we'll see in the next session, 11:30, can generate their own stories, simulations, animations, pretty much on demand, and they can be customized for each student's needs. Within 2 or 3 years, learning management systems will have that integrated, so you can take everybody's results of the last week quiz and customize their stories. When I say stories, I mean curriculum, lesson plans, all this stuff, but fun, engaging, animated stories. And that's going to happen in 2 or 3 years. But the core thing that we have to do is hold on to what is precious about problem solving, the scientific method, and computational thinking. And that's going to change a little, right? You're not going to have to memorize which draw function to use to move a circle, right? But you do have to express clear requirements of, I want this circle to bounce around on the square. So it's changing in many ways, but there's some commonality foundations that aren't going to change. All right, I've talked probably too much. So, all right, go ahead, next.
All right. Next, as I look at my list of presenters, would be Lorna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lorna Spargo. I'm teaching now in my third high school. I'm teaching math at this moment, but I've been a computer science teacher for 12 years, math and computer science for 16. Before that, I was an engineer for 15 years, software engineer. And I've written about every type of software you can imagine. So when you started talking about, Dan, when you started talking about breaking big problems down into small pieces or smaller problems, I see that in the math classes now, because I haven't taught math in 12 years. So it's been eye-opening. And this is a totally different generation type that I'm teaching to. And on top of that, after COVID. So they're not used to looking at large problems anymore. So they just to see a large problem is difficult for them. So that's what I'm doing right now. And my goal, I've already created the course, but I'll be bringing computer science to this school, which I'm pretty excited about because that's what I've done for the last 12 years is just computer science. I don't know, but I totally understand what you're saying, Dan. It's a mystery. I thought that we had been teaching math for all these years, breaking big problems down to small pieces and then solving each piece and then putting it together. But the cool thing about that, I'm teaching an honors level geometry class and we're doing proofs right now. And that is about putting large conditional and compound statements, breaking them apart and solving each one and then putting them back together. So that's why I kind of joined in this morning for this conference, was to try to put my two worlds together.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lorna. Next on the list of presenters I see here, participants I see here is Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Gibbons. I teach at the College of Science Scholastica. So I'm actually a college teacher, but I teach a lot. We do a lot of K through 12 development. In fact, we've been working a lot in a couple AP course work, Mobile CSP and CS Awesome. Our college has been involved developing those. And I teach both at a college, I teach the CS Principles class, which mirrors the AP CS Principles class, and the Java 1 class for this. But one thing I just want to share is I'm trying, like, I think a lot of you bring these tools in because one of the reasons is this fall, I was teaching an advanced Android programming course in Java, and I had students in there after a couple of weeks, we started talking about AI and how we should be using AI in the class. Because again, the first time we taught this class with AI around, and I had two students here there who both come off summer interns, and I asked them, are you using AI, everyone? And they said, oh yeah. And they said, we used it all summer at our internships and we were required to use it. Again, and like you said, the productivity, employers are just expecting or, requiring students to use this to get that productivity. So they don't view it as cheating or, getting the solution. They just, a good way to get a solution faster. And so after talking to those students and realizing that, and again, we're in Minnesota, we're not, out in California where maybe there are more cutting edge stuff, but I'm going, if our insurance companies in Minnesota are expecting our students to be using these AI co-pilots, we better be teaching them and using them in my class. So we've really, moved them. And we've seen a lot of help where our failure rates have gone down significantly from 2 years ago to this year because students are not stuck so much on syntax errors and stuff. Now, you can get into that whole, are they learning what they need to learn? That's a whole different question. So,
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tom. Rick.
Hi, I'm Rick Ballou. I teach computer science at Valley View Middle School in Bloomington. It's a CS&E course, computer science and engineering. And next year I will be part of the computer science immersion classes at the middle school. I encourage my students to use chatbots, especially if we're doing anything with HTML, CSS, or if I'm having them do any of the coding in Java, just because when they move away from block coding, they get so scared of trying to type this stuff in, right? And so if they flip on, go to a chatbot and say, give me, using just natural language, give me an HTML line of code in order to blah, right? And that will spit out code that always works, always compiles, will always load onto their microbit without anything going wrong. They may have to tweak it, so I'm spending a little time teaching prompt engineering, but I encourage it as much as possible because I think, I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but when ChatGPT launched, the amount of people visiting whatever it's called, where you find out coding answers, dropped.
Stack Overflow. Yeah.
Stack Overflow dropped precipitously. And so I just think it's an amazing tool that if we try to prevent them from using it, that ship has sailed. So yeah, great an important part of computer science.
Thank you very much, Rick. Richard, I see you joined recently. We're introducing ourselves and then offering our thoughts with regard to this discussion. So feel free to join in.
I'm a big fan of Dan. I've been following him for a long time. Used to work with him, just amazed at what he's accomplished. And I've attended some meetings over Lab 651 where he's given the presentation, and I just think you're amazing, Dan. That's the only way to describe you. But Valerie's the same way. I've been following her too. And what great leaders and people you are. I'm trying to just learn a few things and used to be in Coder Dojo with you. I mean,
Right. I remember you, Richard. Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to say much more. I just got out of the hospital yesterday, so I would prefer to just listen for a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for your kind words. And I agree. Valerie is one of the best thought leaders we have in the state, and we just need more of you.
And with that much said, I will let Valerie be a leader here, and we can have this be a free-for-all discussion with, if too many people talk at once, Valerie will kick in and take charge.
That sounds good. I thank you all for being here and having this discussion. It's super important. And to Fred's point, uh, it's not going anywhere. It's here. We need to use it. So that's my 2 cents. we need people to understand how it works and not be intimidated by the new tool of the hour that seems to come out every 2 minutes. So
if I could add, we're embracing it at our high school. Not just with the kids, we're embracing it as teachers. I've already used it several times to create rubrics, which I don't know if you've created a rubric recently, but it's a huge thought process to get behind that, unless you're using something that you've used before. And to create something absolutely brand new, it was wonderful to start off with ideas from ChatGPT. I had to do a lot of editing, but the cool thing about it is that you can continue to give it prompts to shrink it down, add things to it, and it keeps building off the original idea, which was very, very cool. So, and we're embracing it to teach our kids. So,
Lorna, have you ever had any formal training on prompt engineering, or are you just trying to figure it out on your own?
Well, to be honest, Dan, when I saw this, I thought, why are we all so surprised by this? Because this has been part of the AP Computer Science Aid curriculum forever, which is the chat bot. And
yeah,
I don't know. It just kind of surprised me that it took the world by surprise. And my team at Hollisburg High School, I think it was 2019, were the first to create the autonomous programming in robotics. And they won the award for that. And they ended up being 3rd in the world that year. And so this didn't take me by surprise at all. I think it more took me by surprise that people didn't know about it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that's been part of AP Computer Science A curriculum for a very, very long time. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Has anybody here taken one of Val's classes on microsims and prompt engineering for teachers?
No, but that sounds really cool, Val.
Val, do you want to talk about your curriculum and how it evolved?
yeah, so we had been working with Bloomington Public Schools to do some computer science curricula, and we had a change up in our staff at kind of the end of that. And so we needed something pretty quick. And my friend Troy, who is with MTN, came up with these cards, these concept cards that we called Create. So we had been doing the Create program for about 5 years, where we teach kids about computation, robotics, engineering, technology, and energy and arts. So that's the acronym. But then he came up with these cards that have the topics on them and a prompt. So you can like pull a card, there's a prompt on the card. You go to ChatGPT or any other chatbot or LLM, put in the prompt and ask for it to write code. We didn't know what language we were going to do it in at first, but we had it write code to visualize that topic. And so Dan and I were laughing because I was meditating one day, and it just kind of hit me that we should probably use P5JS because it's a well-established library that these large language models have been trained on, and that it's all in the browser. So the kids wouldn't have to do any kind of importing or uploading or installing of anything on the computers to use it. So we built our Create with AI program around that language so that it could visualize the topics. So the kids and teachers, we've done it with both, can get a little bit, give them a highlight of how AI works. And then we have them use the cards and those prompts to start generating visualization code. So it breaks that frustration barrier because they can get an instant dopamine hit of being able to create the code, have it work. And then we start teaching them about debugging and changing parameters so they can visually see what happens when they change the code. And so that's been a really fun project to bring for teachers and students of all ages. We've done anywhere from 8 to, I think the oldest person I've done it with is about 85. So lots of experience. And because AI is such a new kind of novel thing for people, it really just blows their minds, but lets them feel like gain that confidence really quickly. So it's been really fun to have that.
Val, I think your discovery that Gen AI generates really super high quality P5.js code, which shortens that feedback cycle for learning prompt engineering, is just brilliant. I think it's one of the greatest insights in education in the last 10 years. I'm not exaggerating, you guys. If you have not done this, go into ChatGPT, say, create a P5.js sketch that does X. Oh my goodness, it is amazing. And I had not realized that P5 has been around since 2020, right? 24 years of sample. Now it's changed in the versions, right? So it has to know to use the latest versions. But you can just type in, I did this the other day, create a P5.js simulation of the tragedy of the commons, literally one sentence, and it built a pretty good working program right out of the gate in one sentence.
Even in the last year that we've been doing this, they've gotten better. So it's, as we continue to train their model, it's getting better and better. And so, I think, we have students who are kind of like, okay, we're bored with the P5, now what? So then we're, moving them on to generating Python code and having kind of like the next layer of code experience, taking it out of the browser, having them, experience working with GitHub and some of those things. So it can be a part of the progression.
And then a quick plug, we're going to be demonstrating microsims at 11:30 in about 25 minutes. So get ready.
Yeah, I'm super curious, just to add, if I can ask a question of the group, what are some of the other ways that you're using AI, not necessarily, for curricula, but like for yourselves and like your time management or your process management? Because are you using a certain platform, or are you just kind of like making your own tools with ChatGPT? Like what are the practices that the educators are tapping into?
One other thing that I've done, Val, as you know, as a teacher, we get some emails from parents, and they can be interesting. And so I've been stumped a couple times as to how to begin the chat back to them. So I've asked ChatGPT to get me started on conversational text. So with parents, and it's actually helped quite a bit. The only thing I'm concerned about is that it starts it off the same way every time. So it doesn't matter how I even tried like 5 different ways to say it, and it kept getting the same beginning, So you notice those little consistencies or inconsistencies that you have to edit. But that's one other way I've used it.
So in my classes, in 2 of my classes this semester, I've used POE.com to make chatbots of idealized student partners. And then I use the knowledge base feature to give it all the class materials, the syllabus, the assignments, transcripts of every single Zoom. So the students can ask the chatbot, what did I miss in class on so and such a day, and stuff like that, and And for group work, I require them to have the chatbot be one of their group members and to talk about what role it had in the group, and stuff like that. Because I think that this is a valuable way for them to think about what relationship they want to have with the technology. Um, and, so far, I have had some students say that it's been good. And I've also had a lot less questions directed at me. Um, and so I'm hoping that it's because this is working, but I suppose I won't really know until I like do a survey or get the evaluations at the end of the class or stuff like that. So that's part of what I've been doing in class. Personally, I find with Poe, I'll often make different chatbots with different underlying base engines because you can choose between ChatGPT or Claude or some others. Um, for like if I want to imagine I'm having a conversation with so and such a person, so then I give the bot the prompt to be that person, and then I can have the conversation. And so in that way, because oftentimes like trying to figure out, well, what would be the right Google search or what would be the right uh, paper to find or whatnot winds up being mm, sometimes just a little bit more effort than I care about putting into it right now. So that's for me personally, to answer your question.
I can go. I because I work with middle schoolers, necessarily they don't necessarily have access to it, but a couple of the side things that I do, I was part of a group that is putting together an immersive learning experience uh, through St. Cloud University, where we are making a VR experience to help teach kids computer science. And the programmer, his name is Mark Gill. He's at St. Cloud State. He briefly worked for Meta, and now he's back at St. Cloud again in their immersive learning department. And he challenged himself, and we went along with it. He coded one of the entire levels of the game just using ChatGPT, just through prompt engineering, and it gave him all the code for Unity that he needed in order to make the entire level from the character to everything that was happening in the level.
That is
And,
so cool.
right?
That's great. I love
It
that.
was really neat. There actually Unity has its own version of a Unity helper chatbot, and it's fine. But he got more done with Claude and ChatGPT than the Unity plugin. Also, I've been using ChatGPT 4 quite a bit. I work for ISTE. I'm sure you all have heard of ISTE. I'm a contractor with them. They have an ISTE certified educator program where teachers submit a portfolio based on their demonstration of the ISTE standards for teachers. And so I'm one of their trainers, facilitators. So I'll have cohorts of teachers from all over the world, and I train them on the standards, blah, 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 right? Um, there's only so many ways I can say, that's wrong, you're doing it wrong. Thankfully, ChatGPT can help me soft pedal that in a more constructive manner rather than boo, which you can't do, and it doesn't come across very well on our LMS. So yeah, the chatbots have been amazing.
So I'm not hearing anybody say, oh, we shouldn't be using any of this sort of stuff at all. So
I can if you want me to.
I was gonna say none of those haters showed up this morning.
There is an interesting story. Val, you want to tell us the story about the people in Edina and Bloomington and things that were all worried and they were going to ban it all, and then you did a class and
Oh yeah.
tell us that story.
it was mostly non-technical teachers. So it was a lot of like the liberal arts teachers, social studies, English. They were all very concerned about AI, probably still are. But they were pushing pretty hard on some of the districts here in Minnesota to just outright ban its use. And we had lots of discussions. We did, a training for people, just to kind of let them know, like, AI is not new. Like, this is not something that just is some overnight thing that's showing up and taking over the world. It's been almost 100 years now of evolution and progress. How it works, taking some of that fear out of it, and we're able to change some minds about just the mindset of using it. I had a meeting the other night, and there was an educator from Normandale who was kind of complaining that students are using AI, and I challenged her a little bit, because it was like, if you're using the same old lessons that are easily gamed that way, then you're going to get those results. But it really is a challenge for our teachers to kind of change up how they're looking to validate that students are learning, right? So like, if you're just going to ask them to write an essay, you're going to get an AI essay, because that's what's going to happen. But like, to Andrew's point, like, having them reflect on how they use AI, or building that into how they're working, or how they're giving you feedback on what they've learned. Those are the things that we're going to have to teach a lot more of these liberal arts and English teachers, is ways to get around that, because you're not going to stop the kids from using it, no matter how old they are. So they're, even if they're not old enough to be on Chat GPT, they're going to be using it, because like, how many of those kids have had a Facebook account since they were 6? Like, age limits be damned, they're going to do whatever they want to do. So we have to adjust. Or Snapchat, exactly. The thing that freaks me out, and I don't know, you just brought up Snapchat, so it reminded me. When we talk to kids, I'll ask them pretty much all the time. Every time I talk to a kid, are you using AI? And they're like, no, or some of them will say no. And I'm like, oh, well, do you use the Snapchat? Oh, well, yeah. I'm like, do you talk to that chat bot? Oh, yeah. So kids will tell me they're talking to those Snapchat AIs like it's their friend, and they're telling that AI things that they wouldn't even tell their parents or their friends. So like, this idea of like what is the word I'm looking for? It's something intimacy. It's like faux intimacy, or whatever that is. Like, these are real things that our kids are going to be are exposed to, not just going to be, but like, these are real implications that we need to think about, because what kind of information are the kids giving to those AI chatbots? We don't really know. And then who gets that information, and what can they do with it? These are the types of things that they worry me a little bit. But using it in a structured way, for lessons and like that kind of thing, is totally different to my mind than having an intimate relationship with an AI.
So Val, you made me feel better about my school, even better, because it's our English teachers who introduced we should be doing this. So I'm
that is amazing, because that's not typically the case.
I'm finding this to be a pretty amazing group of teachers. It's different for me, because I started in a very large inner city school where a third of our school were ESL, and we very culturally diverse, 38 different countries, that kind of thing. I'm taking kids all over the country, competing in science and math and computer science. And then I went to a smaller school, half that size, and they didn't embrace what the city school did. And now I'm in a school that's even half that size. So I'm in a school with 300 kids, 350 maybe. And they embrace quite a bit.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's not the story I'm hearing all the time. So
Yeah,
that's good.
and we're not in a culturally diverse area. Like this is not culturally diverse up here, and it's live free or die. I'm in New Hampshire. So I thought it's been different for me to live up here versus down south near Mass, which is what I'm used to. But I'm finding some pretty cool staff people here. So
So
Recording in progress.
going forward with regard to this sort of session, like, would it basically be repetitive if next year we had this same open discussion again? Because I'm wondering if sort of the value of having the discussion between the two sides winds up not happening because those opposed just sort of self-select out, and that's why we're have everybody that's all here. Or do we just generally consider that we're all here and then we just focus on going forward from here, in terms of possibilities for sessions next year?
I liked having this open forum. I picked up several tips just being in this forum that I'm going to try. So next year, I would say do it because we're going to be evolving from here. So we'll get even better, or share even more information in an open discussion maybe. And then maybe we will get some people who, I mean, we're in a new election year, so who knows, right?
Yeah.
All right, I know 5 minutes was definitely not enough time to probably get through the first two.
Yeah, I think I like also like the idea of incorporating, like just kind of highlighting maybe what's new, because like I said, there's something new happening every 5 minutes, it seems. So by next year, who knows where we're going to be at? Like it could be anybody who tells you they know is lying.
Yeah, I think the phrase never confuse a clear vision with a short distance. I think the vision is these AIs are all going to get better, but the distance of exactly when you'll be able to create custom lesson plans for each student based on their prior week's work and goals, I still can't predict that. It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years. It's hard to tell.
It literally could be tomorrow, Dan.
Yeah, but I will say we are starting to build tools that recommend content inside of big corporations from their intranet that kind of do what we need it to do, right? Recommending a specific paragraph out of a legal contract that you should use for a new legal contract, right? And that means recommending a specific lesson plan too, recommending a specific line of code to fix your things. So the grain and the quality of these recommendations is just getting better, and it's not going to get any worse. These things are all evolving. Hardware is evolving, algorithms are evolving, the amount of data to train on is evolving. And remember, the more microsims are out there, the more data AI has to train on building microsims. So there's this virtuous cycle. Teachers that build microsims, the biggest reason they build microsims is because they see other teachers that have built microsims, and they create their own microsims, and then the other teachers. So we're going to have a doubling rate, just like Moore's law. And that's gonna not change. I could predict within 5 years we have 1 million microsims out there that will be plugged in to every student's need and customized. So I think that's all coming. All right. I'm going to get ready for my next talk here. Val, are you going to be joining me here?
I am in the room all day, so.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Andrew, if you want to just wrap up and share your contact information with people, and then I will, we can just take a break or whatever if you want to hang out in this room, or I'll link the schedule into the chat so people can find their next session.
Okay,
Sure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so shared there, you see on that next screen. Thank you. Thank you all for being part of this. This was good. If you specifically care about reaching out to me, there you can see my email. And since there's oodles of different varieties of social media, I figured I'd be a little bit different and go with Blue Sky. But yeah, you can reach me however you can find me. I think if you search my email, you can find me on LinkedIn and well, whatever. But yeah, thank you all again. It's been good, and I appreciate that we were able to have this discussion. So